Much of the world is working to redefine what humans are in a mother's womb. Should we prepare our kids for this battle too? We're going to talk about that next on the Celebrate Kids podcast.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
As a parent, sometimes I feel like I don't want to turn around another corner on the street because I feel like there's another battle down that street or down that alley that I need to prepare and equip my kids for. One most recent battle that I've discovered is over how we define humans inside a mother's womb. It's something that's being debated in political circles. And it can be a dark topic for some parents because the challenge for us is, how do we bring up this topic with our kids naturally? And how do we equip them with logic, reason, and love to engage this discussion? Well, in this episode of the Celebrate Kids podcast and our daily segment Facing the Dark, we're going to talk about that topic and gain some better understanding of how we can approach it with our kids. So let's turn now to Dr. Kathy Cook. So, Dr. Kathy, last month, the Department of Health and Human Services, the HHS, issued a notice of proposed rulemaking that is seeking to redefine the terms person, natural person, and individual to exclude the unborn. The rule change would apply to federal healthcare regulations, including those that are created by HIPAA. HHS references a law code that was a provision created by the passage of the Born Alive Infants Protection Act of 2002. And that law was signed by then President George W. Bush and aimed to protect infants who survived failed abortions by asserting their personhood. The HHS notes that this law does not include unborn members of the human species in the definition of any terms. Therefore, as part of the rule change, the HHS reinterprets the idea of a person according to other legal standards. So, Dr. Kathy, this feels a little bit like a headache. I don't know if if I have a headache because I'm frustrated or if I have a headache because there is just so much jargon here to kind of go through. But I want to talk about this a little bit, partly because, we celebrate kids here at Celebrate Kids. If that's not obvious, I don't know what is. But why should we fight against this idea of redefining personhood with regards to the unborn? Or maybe we should say preborn children.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, right? Like, part of me is, I'm mad and sad and somewhat frustrated that we would even have to talk about this, because I would love to believe that everyone agrees with us that this is a no-brainer. I've always liked the term preborn. They're created in God's image. God has allowed every person to be conceived that is conceived. It's not our place to question whether or not it was a good idea for those people to conceive a kid. It's God's design, and it's God's, desire for them. And every person created in God's image by his intentional design, that's enough for me to believe that they have a right to be born and a right to be recognized as human.
I often think what actions do to kind of how people feel or perceive reality, especially kids. So an example would be like if a parent maybe raises their voice or yells, that impacts a kid's perception of reality. But I think that this has something kind of also that impacts a kid's perception of reality. What does this kind of action do to a kid? And kind of how they understand their place in the world when we start taking terminology like this and wanting to change it? What do you think that does to a kid?
Well, if children find this out, that they started with no value, might it be easier for them to believe that they still don't have value? That would be my big concern. If teenagers are looking for a current event research study for an assignment and stumble across this, are they going to begin to wonder if they were supposed to be born? Are they going to begin to wonder, well, when is it that I become valuable? When I vote? When I earn money? When I marry and have kids? Am I valuable now? I think it's a huge concern. I would pray that most kids won't know that this has been discussed and is a possibility, but I think your question has merit. It would not be good for kids to wonder about this.
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I bring that up a little bit because I think we talk a lot about pro-life issues with kids, at least in our family we do. And that's, I think, in some ways because we're kind of discipled to do that. Our church has done it. I've had my parents have kind of talked about pro-life issues. But I also think that there are some maybe families that may not have been discipled to talk about the preborn children in their homes. How should parents talk about these kind of issues? And what are some easy things that we can do to start making conversation about the preborn or the unborn really natural, that also kind of grants them dignity in our homes?
I love this question because when I speak at pregnancy resource center banquets to raise money, there's mostly gray hair in the room. There's mostly the older people. We are beginning to attract the 20, 30, 40 somethings, but we have got to do a better job of promoting the cause of life. God is a God of life and a God of love. And so again, enough said. Two things come to mind though about how can we talk about this in our homes. And maybe we do take families to pregnancy resource center banquets. Maybe we have families who collect diapers and toys and supplies for baby showers that are held at pregnancy resource centers. And we don't just do it as adults, but we have our 7-year-olds and our 14-year-olds, help with that. One of the things I've taught kids is to understand that as soon as a mom conceives a child, she is a mom. As soon as a husband and wife, preferably it's a husband and wife, conceive and create a child by God's design, they've become parents. They're not parents 9 months later. They're parents as soon as that child has been created and conceived in the mother's womb. I became a great aunt when my niece Betsy became pregnant, not when her children were born. And that's something that is true if you believe scripture, and it's something that we can promote. Another thing that I enjoy talking about in my work with this ministry here is that we're not saving babies. When we save a baby from abortion, we're not saving a baby, we're saving a human. We're saving human beings. They stay babies for just a short time. They have stinky little diapers for just a short time, but they grow up. We're saving people that have the potential to develop into tremendous men and women and, creative individuals and inventors and pastors and counselors and fabulous husbands, wives, moms, and dads. We're not saving babies. We're saving people.
I really love so much about how Dr. Kathy approaches so many topics. And I think in this topic, it's a great heart search for us to consider how we approach this with our kids, but then also how we're equipping them in these moments. And it's something that I think that the psalmist was talking about in Psalm 139. When he writes, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise, and you perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down, and you're familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. For you created my inmost being, and you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. I love the way the psalmist welcomes the Lord to search and know him. But then he also acknowledges that the Lord knows when he stands and when he lays down, when a word is on his tongue, when thoughts are forming in his head. And the psalmist says that this is too wonderful for him and even too lofty of an idea for him to attain. And then the psalmist goes on to talk about the reality of God's presence being a light that pierces through and cuts through darkness. I think that's an important reminder for us as we approach dark topics. We need to remember that God's light shines bright in the darkness. And so as we stand before dark times, even teaching our kids the realities that they were knit together in their mother's womb, that reality is something that we just simply need to mention. And the light of God, the reality of God, the truth of God will pierce through the darkness of other people's thoughts and logic and reasons. And I believe having a confidence in God in these moments is really a light that shines incredibly bright in dark times. I want to thank you for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast today in our daily segment, Facing the Dark. For all of us here on the team, my name is Wayne Stender, and on behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, we're really looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.